right, man. Just like that. Just like that. We are live back from the Running Bear. I have greatness with me. You know, man, when I first met you, Will, there's so many amazing things there's so many stories that you shared, and I'm so happy, bro. So happy that you were to make it here. I just want to have just open conversation with you, man. When it comes to you, when it comes to what you're doing in life, I mean, you shared some really cool things, man. Like, you come from a very unique background. You got a lot of unique skills, and you're a fighter. You fight.
Yeah.
Have you always been a fighter? Have you always started off with you like fighting as a kid, or is it just something you've always been passionate?
Yeah, that's how it all started. Growing up in the Bronx, I got into a lot of fights in school, on the block. You know what I mean? So I was always around that competitiveness and just fighting because it was a natural thing that happened here and there. I never did any actual training as a kid, but karate for a little bit. And then I started doing boxing years later. So that's how I started. I started late. I started a little bit late.
Okay. Well, what is late? What age would that
24. Started at 24.
Started fighting at 24?
Yeah.
Okay.
I started boxing at 24. Before that, it was just like, fights that you get into here and there. But, yeah.
Now, you said Brooklyn.
Bronx, in the Bronx.
Bronx, I'm sorry, the BX.
Yeah,
the BX.
Bronx, yeah.
Just a heads up, just pull this a little closer to you.
Yeah. It's a little hot, too, so my forehead starts sweating. The light upstairs. Yeah.
Nah, it's the aura, man. It's your aura just kind of...
It's the heat.
It's just coming off, man.
Yeah.
So I guess fighting, dude. Is there anyone who influenced you to fight?
It was more so the necessity to do it sometimes, just off of situations and, growing up, watching action movies. My dad was into boxing heavy. He would watch all the boxing matches in that time. And, I grew up watching Mike Tyson tear it up, watching Floyd Mayweather coming up. And then I started watching the UFC years later when I was already living in Venezuela because I was born in Venezuela, but I was raised in the Bronx. And then I went back to Venezuela, to live some years out there. I did high school out there. And, so I feel like my influences, I was always action as a kid, I was always playing basketball, playing football. When I went to Venezuela, I learned how to play soccer. But even when I went back and I got to, knowing my cousins and, his friends and the boys on the block over there, it's just, boys, you're growing up,
dudes being dudes,
who's the alpha, who plays more basketball, who plays more soccer, who fights the best, But when I came back here to the States, because I was out there for a little bit, then I came back, I started having an inclination towards wanting to actually learn a martial art. Like, actually, I kept telling a friend that I had at the time, I was like, yo, I want to get into MMA. Like, I want to learn. And he was like, yo, but I wasn't like, let me get it right now. It was more like, I have the desire is there. Like, I have the curiosity, so I would say it started about, I was 18, 19. I've kept talking about it. So it's like my subconscious kind of like, grabbed that point from me. Like, okay, he wants to fight. I want to fight. And then years later, I went to the boxing gym that was by my house at the time. And that's when I started actually like training, like the actual discipline. So.
Wow. When I think about fighting, I think about just combat, right? It's a lot of times it's like survival, fear, courage. Like, are you ever afraid when you fight?
For sure, 100%. I feel like fear is one of those. Fear is part of the fuel. It's one of those major, it's one of the major fuels, or part of that fuel.
Yeah.
Because it's not so much. Once you start fighting, it's not so much the fear of getting hurt. It's the fear of failure.
What do you mean?
The fear of losing, So, okay. And the fear of losing is very much right there with the fear of winning. It's both extremes. So, especially when you're fighting as a performance, when you're fighting as a show, when you're fighting for your people, the people that come to support you, when you're fighting for your team, when you're fighting for a goal, there's all the fears that come with not achieving that, But the fear of the violence and the pain itself, it doesn't, once you start fighting and you know you're not made of glass, that dissipates. You know, it's like, all right, I know what I could take, I know what I could give.
Where does that come from? So you're saying that once you're repetitive and you're training, you're practicing, at some point there's an understanding of saying the opponent from you can also break. He can also bleed.
Absolutely.
There are some people who train very hard. Is it a regimen of the training that ultimately depicts that confidence?
100%. So the more you train, the more comfortable you get. It's like anything, you know. Also, I like to play chess. I would say I'm a little above average at it, and it's like there's only, the more you do it, the more you know there's only so many moves you can make. But with fighting, it's similar. You know, you know that you're playing off of your opponent's fears. You know that you're playing off of his rhythm. You know that you're playing off, there's factors that you're playing off of, and he is as well. So, yeah, for sure. You know, you play off the fear, you use your own fear, and the more hard work and you know, the more work you put into it, the more confidence it gives you, because it's something you do on the regular. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
right.
it's the hard work breeds the confidence for sure.
Okay, so at 24, you know, you started getting this, or at least you started fighting, and you had an inclination of fighting. Were you an athlete growing up? Did you have like a background in athletics and?
So not I wouldn't say I wasn't like a school athlete or anything like this. I was the best at basketball in Venezuela, but that's because in Venezuela they play soccer, and in the Bronx they play basketball. So I'm like mid here, but over there I'm good. You know what I mean?
Shiv told me the same thing.
Yeah.
Shiv told me in India he was the man. He was the man, and
Shiv's a decent player. He's a decent player
in India.
Yeah, yeah, exactly that. Over there I'm killing it. You know, over there I'm like, yo, he's good. But so I played basketball, I played football, but it was always at the park, at school, you know, messing around. It wasn't at the athletic collegiate level or anything like that. But I was always active as a kid. It was always the superheroes for me. So when you asked about my inspiration for fighting, I would say that's also a big factor. For me it was X-Men and Superman, and like to see humans personifying superpowers was like, you know what I mean? It was like,
that's cool.
We can do that to some extent. We can be as fast as we can be. We can be as strong as we can be. We can be as astute as we can be. You know what I mean? There's how can I enhance myself? And I remember I would draw them too. You know, I would draw the superheroes, and I always wanted to be that. When I grew up. So you know, it's part of it as well.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Do you feel like you bring that not the superhero mentality, but do you bring that? What's the word? How do I word that? The backing of you know, Venezuela and the Bronx. Do you feel like you have the pressure on your back to represent that, or now as a fighter, as you've grown as a fighter, do you feel like it's more important to do that from a spiritual aspect versus an actual location?
Well, I think it's symbiotic, right? I feel like, in a sense, even if you don't consciously or verbally represent where you come from, you represent where you come from the minute you say where you come from. You know, as soon as people know that you're from, as soon as people know you're from a certain place, they're like, oh, I'm from there too. You know, let's see who this guy is. Let's see how he fights. Let's see how he talks, how he moves. But it is like, to your question, it's spiritual in that when I fight, I feel like I'm representing the human spirit. I feel like I'm representing my human spirit, and I feel like that there's more connection to that to connect with everybody than just where you're from. I obviously represent where I'm from because it's where I'm from. You know, where you grew up, it molds you. You know what I mean? So people could sense where I'm from just by the way I move, by the way I talk, you know. So I 100% represent the Bronx in Venezuela when I go anywhere. I would say it's not pressure, but there is a desire to highlight the struggle of Venezuela right now, especially because it's a country that's in heavy decadence right now. So when I go out there and fight, I do have a little bit of that pressure on my back to be like, yo, we gotta come out with our hands raised, not just me, but for people who don't have electricity right now, for people who don't have food to feed their children right now, or to leave the country in a pursuit of a better life. But to your question, it's more of representing the human spirit in general, because we're all fighters. We're all fighters.
Absolutely. Do you think that makes you a better fighter compared to other fighters who say don't have that, or maybe they do that maybe because some fighters maybe have an ego, and some people they got picked on and like I'm not gonna get my ass kicked anymore, so I'm gonna train and then I'm gonna be the bully. I know some people who are bullies and fighters, but I also know that that's not the route to do that.
Absolutely not, because when you learn how to really fight, it immediately humbles you. It's not.
How so?
Well, it's bone to bone. You know what I mean? It's pain. And beyond that, when you're bested by another man in combat, it's synonymous to him killing you. Because if, let's say in a street fight, right? You know, you get into it with somebody. If you're on the floor, they've mercied your life. You understand? Because let's say I knock somebody out on the street, right? He's unconscious. If I have the malice to kill him, I could. You understand? So there, even if it doesn't happen, something in your brain registers that just happened. Wow, like he bested me. So it humbles you. You know what I mean? So the majority of people don't know how to actually fight. So when you train to fight and you're bested, you're like, okay. And you also understand the psychology of the bully, right? Like maturity will let you get past that a lot quicker. You can use it as fuel in the way that you're like, okay, I'm never gonna be bullied again, and I also stand for exposing the weakness of a bully and the pain of a bully, because a bully is just somebody in pain, somebody who's expressing anger and repression and depression, right. and projecting it onto others, and that's weakness. That's not.
Agreed.
It doesn't come from a place of strength. So when you start training martial arts and you exhaust yourself and you bleed and you feel pain and you're on the mat and somebody's pinning you on the floor, you're like, yo, this is real. Like, this is not just some bully like giving me a nuggie or like, you know, roughing me up on the yard or whatever, you know? Yeah. So yeah, definitely. I feel like once you start fighting, it shows whatever fuels you. But there has to be, and I feel like love for whatever it may be. It may be for yourself, it may be for your family, it may be for your country, it may be for a cause. Love is the strongest fuel, the strongest source of fuel to do anything. But when you love what you're doing and what you're doing it for, that's the best fuel.
No, I love that, dude. Yeah, I love sure. that. And let me ask, do you have a family? Do you have kids? A wife?
I have a wife. We're not like traditionally married, but we live together.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't have kids yet, but it's on the horizon.
Awesome.
You know.
Well, future congratulations for you.
For sure.
When has your wife seen you fight?
Not yet.
No.
Not yet.
So okay. So when I think of, if I get into a fight and I'm with I was in a relationship, not in a relationship, but if I have a wife and kids, I mean, that's an extra. I don't want, dude. I can't. If my wife watch,
I'm breathing. Just think about it.
I know that, and I think about that all the time. I'm like, if my wife were to watch me get into an altercation, whether it be in a ring or on a street fight, and I get knocked out, and will she love me after that? It goes through my mind because if I couldn't protect myself in the subconsciously, will she ever think that I can't protect her, and will I ever recover from that from a trauma standpoint? I'm like, man, like it's now none of that has ever happened. It hasn't happened, but I think to myself, man, if someone is a trained fighter, and say I'm not a technical fighter, I haven't trained, but you are a fighter, right? So say we go head to head, you knock me out, I'm with my significant other. From a psychology standpoint, dude, I can't. It's going to take me a long time to come back from that because I'm going to feel inferior. Sure. Another man dominated me in front of this woman who I dominate in psychologically. Right. You know, as a fighter in that life, I understand it's part of the game. And I understand that game, it's a ruthless game. You know, there's a winner and there's a loser.
Only that.
It's just it. The best one is going to keep moving on.
Yep.
The other one has to pick the pieces and continue to not only strive and get past that mental block, but persevere. How do you... And that's just my perspective. For you as a fighter, have you ever thought about it? Like, is it...
Absolutely. So what you're mentioning now is actually a very common fear of the average man. Most men put themselves in these situations where they're like, yo, what if I'm with this girl and, you know, some shit goes south and I get fucked up. It's actually very common. Yeah. So my last fight was in 2022, in March of 2022, and I was just starting off with my wife now, like my girl. And that was my last fight. She didn't go to that one. But it's something that it's another motivating factor to get the win. Now, it is a very heavy motivating factor, right? Because you don't want to lose.
It's a huge one. It's not a little one. I was just assessing.
Bro, you do not want to take that L in front of your girl because it's like you said. It's like she might love you. Hey, baby, it's okay. You had that, whatever. But there's a part of her that saw what happened, and there's a part of her that registers that you got fucked up and bested that day. And it won't. Because, you know, depending on the woman too, obviously her level of maturity and everything, it won't affect the relationship or anything. But you know that she saw that, and she knows that it went down, and it's like, is she not? It's a fight, whatever. Well, he got fucked up. You know, like it happened. Yeah. So I do think about it, but that's why, you know, I train hard. And the goal is to avoid that happening, you know, at all costs. At least demonstrate, because if it does happen a lot, it's a career. It's a dangerous career. It could happen. It might happen. I don't see it happening. I've taken my L's. You know what I mean? I only have one loss by submission. All my other losses are by decision. So I've never been knocked out. I've been knocked down, but I haven't been knocked out.
Congratulations, man. That means you're a rumbler, bro.
Yeah. Well, you know, and my point to that is just demonstrate the best of yourself. Once you have that, like, as the foundation, then she knows you're a savage, you know. So down the line, if some shit goes south, she knows, all right, you know, it's a bad night for him. It don't matter. He got paid either way. So, you know, it's good. Yeah.
So that's, I mean, you say it so nonchalantly, but that's not an easy thing to get to, man. And not at all. Especially like if you're starting off as a fighter, a lot of people are fighting for their lives. They're fighting for their next meal. Maybe they're fighting to get past trauma. Maybe they didn't have parents. Maybe they're orphan. Maybe they're fighting to prove their worth in life. Yeah. And with someone who doesn't have anything to lose, dangerous, man. Yeah. Dangerous.
For sure.
If I'm in my mind, if I'm in that situation, my first thought goes to, all right, there's fair ones and then there's no fair ones. Right? Mm-hmm. And I think in 2025, I would say a lot of people won't put themselves in that position. So someone will pull a knife, someone will pull a gun, and good luck.
Right.
Good luck. Right. Put your hands up, bro. I want you to. Yeah. I'd even train for this moment. Go ahead. Do it, bro. But they also have that cold sense that they will do it.
They will. Yeah.
They will do it.
Most people will.
They will do it. Yeah. And so when you think of fighting, what is something a piece of advice you can give to someone who is maybe a younger fighter or just getting into fighting, and maybe they have this chip on their shoulder, maybe they have this thing, like, what would you tell them with your experience now?
I would say use that discipline. Use that chip on your shoulder to stay disciplined and remain humble. But most importantly, keep that chip on your shoulder as motivation, but pull from a cleaner source of motivation. Like I mentioned earlier, love. You know what I mean? Let the chip on your shoulder be fueled with the love you have, maybe for yourself, to like not ever go through a situation like that, whatever. But because the chip on your shoulder is not enough. You know what I mean? Right. You have to be passionate about it. It can't just be like, oh, I'm salty, because you're going to lose. Because that salty people, you're not going to win if you're salty. So I would say be consistent, especially if you're younger, you're going to have a lot of distractions. You're going to have, as a young man, the desire to go out there and, you know, live life, try life's pleasures, you know, get some experience under your belt with all kinds of, you know, everything that life and the life of today's generation and the comfort it has to offer. You know, we live in cozy times, man. We live in very cozy times. It's easy to just live a comfortable life, you know, whereas back in and not too long ago, 100, 200 years ago, people had to, like, you were 18, you had to go fight. It don't matter where you come from. You rich or poor. You had to go fight.
Right.
So you could hold a gun or a sword or whatever. You got to go out there for your family and, you know, and honor them. So because that wasn't too long ago, we still have that in our DNA. You know what I'm saying? That's why if you have a basketball game here, you got a tennis game here, and I don't know, a handball game here, and you got a fight here, all these people are gonna come watch the fight. Because it's the oldest competition in human beings. It's going out there and hunting for your food. So that's the advice I would give to That's the advice I would give to my younger self, because I started later. You know, ideally as a fighter or martial artist, you want to start young. You know, because you want to build in mechanisms into your body of the fight itself, of what it is to move as a fighter, think as a fighter, react as a fighter. These are things that take time. You know, me, because I've always been athletic and I was very intentional about it, and I've been in fights. That's another thing. A lot of MMA fighters never been in actual fights. They'll start training MMA and they'll start fighting when they start sparring and fighting. But I was already, you know, I had busted lips. I got, you know, fucked up plenty when I was a kid. Sorry, excuse my language.
No, it's okay. We're diversity and inclusion here. Yeah. We accept cursing.
YouTube is all valid.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, good. But so I had that experience that kind of aided me into getting into it, because, you know, I got into it pretty late. So that would be my advice: is stay disciplined, consistent, humble, and use that chip on your shoulder as motivation.
So if a young man doesn't say they don't love themselves, how important is a mentor or someone who can guide them very young? Because I think of Tyson like
I was just about to tell you, Cus D'Amato.
Exactly. And Tyson was an angry man, you know, so they killed his pigeons, and he was just he was an angry kid because of his upbringing, and I understand that. I understand that upbringing and the anger of misplaced energy, because you're upset, but you don't know where to put it, and you're still developing. You're not even a man yet, but you have all of these emotions, and then you start getting testosterone. Yeah. And it transitions. But you have to mold that, and you have to be able to. And as a young man, I'll be honest with you, good luck.
Right.
Good luck. But so you need either someone who's been there, a mentor, or someone. But how important is that, especially at fighting journey?
For sure. So it kind of ties back to what we were just saying right now. Specifically, is like Mike had the chip on his shoulder, but that wasn't going to be enough. He needed Cus D'Amato's passion, intention, and love for him.
Yes.
To mold him. So he needed the love that I was telling you, combined with that anger and that chip, and you got a monster. And you got a monster.
He became a monster.
And he became a monster.
He was the guy.
He was the king.
And he still is the guy, because he still had the nuts to step in the ring.
Right. He was the shortest heavyweight, bro. Little guy fighting 6'2", 6'3", 6'4" guys, just flattening them out on the floor, you know? So a mentor is important. I feel like when you're on your way, he was lucky in that, you know, he found this guy. It was almost like Mike's story. It was like he was destined to be that guy.
Yeah.
And you only say he was destined to be it because he lived the greatness. Like he lived what he lived. So you were like, yo, this was meant to be. You know. But if we go deeper into that, everything is meant to be once it's happened. But it is important to have somebody who can help you walk down that road and walk down that path. Once you start, there's a saying that says, I think it's from Carl Jung. It says, do your work, something, I'm paraphrasing, but it says something like, do your work intentionally and consciously, and unknown allies will come to support you. You've read it somewhere. You know what I'm...
Absolutely, and I agree with that completely.
That's life.
I believe that. I tell Shiv this all the time. I feel that way when it comes to even this podcast.
For sure.
Just is when you got to do it. Like, what comes of it, I don't know. Sometimes it's ugly, man. Sometimes the shit doesn't work. Sometimes stuff breaks, and we're just like, fuck.
Yeah. Light shining on your forehead.
Just shining on your forehead, and the forehead's cut off and everything, man. And you're just like, man, but where you learn as you go, and you learn, you take a step, you take a step. You
gotta fumble a little bit.
And you just gotta keep getting up and keep going, getting up. And then here's the thing. Conversations like these happen because if we would have never continued this, dude, it would have happened, but just never in this context to the point where it could help millions and millions of people.
For sure,
and people who maybe have to hear that story. And as I start to understand the power of just being and doing, but also the thing that is outside of myself. Right. To your point, it's bigger than you, and it's bigger than me. It's got to be bigger than yourself, than me, the ego. I mean, there's fears, but all that shit doesn't matter when it's the grand scheme of things, and that is that you have to courageously and fiercely be yourself.
For sure.
And that is going to be the thing that lights up people's lives.
100%. And that's one of the things that Mike did is that, Mike, he would say that one of his favorite fighters was Roberto Duran, Mano de Piedra, Hands of Stone. He was a Panamanian, very famous fighter. And he said he felt he could relate to him because Roberto Duran's mom was like Mike's mom. She was out there. She wasn't the best parent. She was living a sort of lifestyle, kind of neglecting, kind of from the streets. Roberto Duran was like that. He was very rowdy, very rude, very dark, whereas Muhammad Ali was just this pristine kid, good parents, great boxer, great man. But Mike couldn't relate to that gritty street trauma, heart pain, chip on my shoulder type of thing. You know what I mean? So, yeah, man, it's about presenting yourself honestly. Honest expression is a form of self-love. If you express yourself honestly, even if your voice trembles, even if it's not easy, you're choosing to speak your truth. And truth is like love. It's heavy, it permeates everything, and it pulls out the love in others. You know what I mean? So when somebody sees somebody expressing themselves honestly, it pulls that out of them as well. Absolutely. So that's important. And that's why Mike is such a superstar, because he wasn't the most intelligent. He wasn't the most, cordial or polite, but he was a fucking savage. He was a savage, and he was honest about it. And Mike, he was passionate about being the best. So Mike would study the best fighters. He would go beyond boxing. He would study the conquerors. He would study Alexander the Great. He would study, just conquerors and warriors throughout history, and he would relate to them. And he would read the books, and he would watch the tapes. And what happens when you what's the word? When you dive deep into any kind of world or life of somebody that did live in this time, you kind of absorb a bit of that. So if you're reading, because it's a human archetype, and we're humans. Even if you're an individual living in this time with your story, and you were born in this time in this place you can still feel pain in your knee or heartbreak, or you can still feel sadness or happiness. These are things that go beyond time that every human being experiences. So, he connected to that, and I think that molded his mentality to be the conqueror. Like, boom, I'm the king, I'm the savage. But that can also go south, because then what happens is there's a point where you drink your own Kool-Aid. You're killing everybody, boom, boom, boom. And now it's not so much love. It's just ego and love for power.
You toot your own horn and you start.
And that's dangerous. That's when you get knocked out, bro. Because you're not fully grounded. You're too up here and your feet are dangling. So you're not fully grounded. When you're not fully grounded, and especially in a fight, you cannot not be present in a fight. The moment you lose a little bit of presence, you're susceptible to getting hurt.
Okay, so that's a big piece there. So when it comes to getting into a fight, what are some of your rituals, maybe do you listen to a certain song? Do you have a mantra that you approach? Do you pray? Do you like,
I pray. Yeah? Yes, I do pray. I pray. My grandfather, he was a wrestler, and he recently passed away.
Sorry to hear that, bro.
Yeah, and so I keep him in mind heavy now. But prior to that, I would pray intentionally to my ancestors, to the warriors in my bloodline that I don't know how far or how deep it goes, but I know they're there because I feel it. And I pray to the source. I pray to the creator, and I pray, I pray that I come out healthy and that my opponent does as well. And I pray for victory. And but no specific songs. I'll have my walkout song. I'll have songs that I listen to in the build-up. The way I prepare is eating well, training hard. That's the way I prepare. I wouldn't say there's okay, so one of the rituals is not particularly mine, but my mom, she does this thing with like smoke. It's called saumerio. She'll like kind of like bless me, and she has like this little like a what do you call this? Like a cauldron. You know what it's called? A little cauldron with smoke, and it has a specific thing that she burns, and she'll like pray me with the smoke around
to kind of
cleanse me and prepare me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I actually did that
before every fight.
I did that with a ritual down in Colombia. Before ayahuasca, they do that around the entire house, and they do it around everyone to bless everyone and to make sure that everything's cleansed and in good spirits, good vibes, and all the negative energy is essentially exposed. So make sure that you're good. You're good. What does a good diet and a good a good workout routine look like for you? Because I hear people talk about diet, I hear people talk about routines, but everything is different, man. Like obviously as a fighter, you gotta. My thought goes to you gotta be really good on the ground game, which is a whole different shape. Which is so I'm thinking endurance. A lot of people could fight for a good 30 seconds. After 30, 60 seconds, it's over, bro. You see people, they're flushed and they're just either gonna ball up and take the L.
I'll tell you. Look, listen. When I'm out of shape, that's me. I'll Mike Tyson it for the first 60 seconds, and I'm fucking jabbing and weaving and moving away and like trying to figure it out. It's I would say it's mainly sparring, even though that's nowadays a lot of fighters, but these are professional fighters that have been sparring all your life. If you just started fighting, you need to spar. But there's some fighters that are like stepping away from the sparring because even when you're not going 100%, it's still impact. You know what I mean? If I jab you, even if I'm not going 100%, and if I jab you to the nose, I can break your nose. It doesn't take much pressure. Or I can break the inside of your lip, or you could get a little concussion. Like once I'm done sparring, sometimes I have a little bit of a headache. And that's actually is normal and it's common, but you don't want too much of that along the years, right? Yeah. But I would say regular sparring with the intention to learn and flow and develop and work with your partners, not hurt each other, that's key. Because there's nothing that gets you more prepared for something than doing the thing. Like the podcast, you know what I mean? Like anything you do consistently, you're going to get better at. Drilling techniques. So for me, it's like I'll be very honest in saying that I'm right now I'm an amateur fighter. I'm still not professional. I haven't treated every fight camp with the discipline that it requires. But ideally, the closest that I've gotten to that perfect structure is training, 4 to 5 days a week, with 2 to 3 days of sparring, and just eating clean, not eating a lot of sugar, not eating anything fried, taking the processed foods down, and just try to eat more clean sources of food. That's
what's a fight camp? I'm not a fighter myself, but I'm assuming it's just a camp of fighting. You go to camp for fighters, and everyone just
Fight camp is basically, let's say you're fighting and you have a fight in March, right? You're already in fight camp. What that means is you have a structure and a schedule that you have to abide by. And there's a schedule, there's a certain routine, you drill, you do body strength and conditioning, you do drills, you do ground wrestling drills, and you do boxing drills, and then you do the actual sparring. So it's the structure of it.
How long does that last?
It depends, it depends on you. It depends on how far the fight is, how long you like to prepare. For example, my last fight, they called me in on a 2 weeks notice, right? Because
for a fight?
For a fight. That was my last fight in 2022.
Were you prepared for that fight?
I was training. So
it's fair. I was training.
I was training. Was I prepared? Like, okay. Why I say it is because they put me up against a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, right? And I'm a blue belt.
Okay.
So I took the fight. Like, once they gave me the name, I looked him up. I saw he was a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. I said, yeah, I'll take it. And I said I'll take it because I was training consistently in that time, and I was in good shape. So I said, I feel good. If I had to fight right now, I'll do it. My mistake was not working more on my ground game and knowing that he was going to capitalize on his, because that's what happened. For 3 rounds, this guy, he's a brown belt, mind you, pinned me up against the cage on the floor the whole 3 rounds. 3-minute rounds, 9 minutes of this guy not wanting any smoke on the feet. When we were on the feet, I clipped him once with a left hook, and there's even a picture of it. You saw him. I seen him. I remember looking at me like, nope. You know what I mean? Like he was like, and he just proceeded with his game plan, and that's how he got the win. But he couldn't. I pride myself on that. For a 2 weeks notice up against a seasoned grappler, he couldn't finish me. He couldn't submit me. He had top position on the ground and pound permitted to finish the fight, and he couldn't. Like, he couldn't get past me holding his hands. So I pride myself on surviving that, because it could have went south for a brown belt versus a blue belt. Brown belt is one belt before black. You understand? He's right there to be a master. And I felt like once he got a hold of me and pressed me up against the cage, I felt the grappling prowess. I was like, ooh, all right, let me try to keep this on the feet. And I tried, but I failed. And yeah, man, it's you got to stay on your toes when it comes to these things.
How did that change your game? So after that, you know, obviously you sound
it's been 3 years since I fought after that. Nah, but it's been on the, you know, in all fairness, it's because, you know, I've been taking care of other things, you know, in my personal life. But after that fight, the reason why I say it like that, it's because I told myself my next fight I'm winning. It doesn't like, whatever happens, I'm winning in my next fight, so I have to make sure that I treat it with the discipline, consistency that it requires, and not let any other outside personal rant, bills, work, girlfriend, family, whatever, it can't get in the way. That's why a lot of these fighters, you'll see sometimes they're getting in their fight camp and they'll leave their family behind. They're just with the team, you know, like soldiers going on a mission to war. When you treat it with that mentality, you're zoned in, because when you're in there, it's life versus life. You're a vessel full of life, and that man is a vessel full of life, and he has his reasons to win and to fight, and so do you. And he's trying to off you. You understand? So it's you versus life in the moment. It's the most vivid personification of you versus life, and life trying to knock you down and you trying to win, basically.
Yeah, that's
because it's an actual life being.
How much you prepare for life.
How much you prepare for life. Yeah. And life is going to throw shit at you. Are you going to bob and weave and hit back, or are you going to get knocked out? You know what I mean?
Right.
Can you push? It's like that Rocky speech in the movie. It's like, you're going to get knocked down. They're going to hit you. It's how much you can keep going.
Right.
That's why, to your point, cardio is key, man. You have to be present. And the more present you are, the less cardio you need. Because when you're present, you don't need to breathe much. You see everything.
So does substances like, I don't know, coffee, energy drinks, say, you know, you're having I don't know, just maybe an off day, does that alter your perception? Does it alter your peripherals? Maybe you're just a little too shaky, or maybe you're just too flat. Like, say someone takes, you know, a cup of coffee versus an energy drink versus a bump of cocaine. Or like oxy for pain and stuff like that. Or steroids.
Yeah.
You know, you people have their own concoctions this day and age, peptides, like people are doing a bunch of stuff. How do you know who you're going up against? And is it? I'm not going to say is it fair, because I know life's not fair. But I'm not trying to go head to head with someone who's on the juice, who's on the sauce.
I'll tell you a personal story. One of my fights, back in 2020 in February, I had a fight lined up, and it was with a guy that when he walked into the ring, he had to have like 20 pounds on me, bro. Just jacked. You could tell this guy was either on something or, excess of creatine. I don't know, but he was on something, right? And it's also the reason why he didn't show up to the weigh-in. Because, you go to the weigh-in and you do the face-off with your opponent prior to the fight. He never showed up.
Do you have to get drug tested at those?
Yeah, you do. You get drug tested. You get blood tests.
He didn't show up. He just showed up to the fight.
He just showed up to the fight. Yeah.
How? How's that?
To your point, I think in amateurs, I don't think they do a lot of drug testing in amateurs. So I'm not saying he was on the juice. I'm saying he looked like he was on the juice.
Yeah.
But then again, to the ignorant eye, a lot of people look at me and think I'm on the juice. So it's like it's not. But for me being in that fitness world and seeing people that have been on some shit, like he was probably on something. It's either that or he was not at the weight that it was arranged at the fight, which was 170 pounds. That dude came in like probably 200 pounds, bro. So, when he stepped in the cage, it thudded. And I got a little nervous. I didn't even show it, but I just started shaking my arms a little bit. Like, all right, this guy's heavy. I felt the vibration on the floor. But what I think about, I won that fight, so it doesn't. What I'm going to that is he knocked me down in the first round. The fight lasted a minute and 56 seconds, I think it was, or 51. He knocked me down 3 times, and he knocked down my tooth. This one. Oh, shit. So when I took my mouthpiece off, the tooth was inside the mouthpiece when it was over. A lot of people looking at the fight thinking, "Oh my God, Will's getting fucked up. Like he's getting bodied." I pressed him up against the cage at one point, and I felt him not there. I felt him gassed. I felt him not there. I said, "This is it." I pressed up. I came up, and I finished him right there. 11-second TKO. Boom. Done. Oh. So it doesn't matter what kind of shit you're on or not. When you're gonna fight, the truth will be revealed. If you create any sort of dependency on anything, that's in your head. Nobody has to know it, but you know it. Mm-hmm. So if you create any kind of dependency, like, oh, well, I need this and that, oh, I didn't have it today, there's a fear that happens because you didn't have it today. So the more you develop yourself naturally in any scenario, you create the confidence that even when I'm sleepy, even when I'm tired, even when I'm not in my best, I'm there naturally. And this is how I am naturally. You know what I mean? With me, I'm already sometimes a little too energetic. So sometimes coffee will give me anxiety. Like it'll make me overthink. It'll get me a little too shaky. So I have to be either doing something or, you know what I mean? Like I got to be moving around. That's why I drink coffee for work. But yeah, that's what I would say. I would say if I'm going up against a guy that doesn't instill fear in me at all. If anything, I think it's an advantage to me. Like if a guy is on some juice or whatever, let him be. Let him be. Is he dangerous or more dangerous? He might be. That's cool.
Right.
But I'm dangerous too. Right. Off of it.
Right.
So let's see who wins.
Do you think that has to do with alignment with God?
100%.
So you got to be aligned with God and balanced. Yeah. And when you are in that alignment, you see it, but you're also moving in it. Your movement is aligned with your overall mental, your spirit, your body. For sure. When you're off that, subconsciously, now that little bit. And I heard of a interview Conor McGregor did a long time ago. He said, what did he say? He was like, he said something like, well, he lost some fight. I don't know which fight specifically. He was like, but when you do the thing, he was like, I wasn't supposed to take it. I took it. He was like, I wasn't supposed to be there. I showed up. He was just going down his list. He was just basically going in his mind, subconsciously admitting the things that he should have done, whatever those things may be, leading to his loss, meaning that he was distracted off his own bullshit, whatever that is. Mm-hmm. As much of that it's a detriment to his fighting career, but mentally as a man, and you can't you can't shortcut that, because outside of anybody in this world, and that's the key. You have to show up so organically but you got to put the work in, and you got to put the work in the right way, and everything that comes out of that. is going to be the thing that, you know, I don't want to say it's the reward of it, but it's the reward. If you did shortcut that, do you think you still have that feeling of accomplishment? Do you think it's like I put the work in, and I won,
but it's not the same.
It doesn't feel the same.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel the same.
The victory, there's a percentage to the satisfaction that you get from it. You know, you might get the victory, but a part of you knows, and it'll catch up with you eventually, because I feel like as we live our lives, we're constantly trying to learn from ourselves, directly or indirectly. And McGregor is a good example of that, because he's an interesting case in that he was a young man growing up, and he dedicated and devoted himself to a cause, which was the victory in this field, for whatever purpose. And I feel like he embodied a warrior spirit, like that warrior archetype. He fully embodied it. He embodied it so much not so much in both in action and in word, because not everybody was as outspoken as him. You know what I mean? A part of the thing that made McGregor such a boom is that he was very verbal and outspoken about his confidence in his fighting and what he was set out to do. And then when you have that and you go out and do what you said you were going to do, people got to shut up. You shut so many mouths just by saying, I'm going to do this, because it almost makes you, it's almost like you're doing something ahead of time. Like it gives you like this mystical element. Like he knew something before he went and did it so specifically. And I think fighting is one of those things where it's like you said, you can't deviate from God or the truth, because God and the truth are synonymous, and the truth is your truth. How do you feel comfortable? If you feel like you should have done more, but in your own head, you know, well, I didn't go this time, and you know, well, this time I flaked or whatever. That's in that bank. That's in your memory bank. Right. You know what I mean? So there's a percentage to the confidence, and there's a percentage to the satisfaction of the victory, how it comes and when it comes and everything. You know? So yeah, there's definitely a percentage to it, I would say.
That's incredible, man. That's incredible. And so when you step into this ring, and I can't assume everything's always perfect, you know, it's just like
it's chaos.
It's chaos. But what if you're hurt? What if you haven't slept? How do you combat? How do you combat that?
That's the fight. So the physical part of the fight is only the manifestation of what's inside of you. Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? You're fighting for what? You know what I mean? So when you're in there and you know you've kicked a knee and now it's swollen up and your foot is compromised, or you broke your hand, you could quit, but you also got another hand. You know what I mean? And you also got another leg.
Right.
So are you going to quit because of broken hand, or are you going to fight? You know what I mean? Because there's people here supporting you and watching you. You know what I mean? And they see you have another hand. You know what I mean? So are you going to persevere? Are you going to find a way to fix this problem, knowing that your hand will regenerate? It's not like it got chopped off. We don't have swords. You know what I mean? This is combat, hand combat. You're going to come out fairly unscathed. It's not like gladiator times. Like that's something that's a different kind of adrenaline and thrill to think about. Oh, I could get stabbed right here and die. It's different. With fighting, you could die in the cage, but there's a percentage to that too. It's like, it'll happen maybe a 5 to 10, under 10% of deaths in the cage and in the ring. But possible, still possible. So yeah, I would say that's yeah.
So the pain, man, the pain. I can't. For me, I recently tore my Achilles and I was in a basketball game. I just snapped it. I went to go accelerate, snapped. Done. And I tried to even walk, couldn't walk. I just sat down. You know, I didn't cry, I didn't argue. I was just like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. I can't do anything. I had to go, and 6 months later, here we are. It's just been step by step getting back to a place that's healthy. When you're walking into that ring, man, and you do get that injury, and you choose to keep going, what fuels that? And I said, obviously, the warrior mentality, but you have to make a decision. At that point in time, I sat down and said, I'm out. You know, I don't have nothing to prove. I'm not here to leave that. I'm not here for that. Right. Now I'm an athlete and I'm very competitive. And in any other time in my life, I would have done that. And when I played football, absolutely. When I tore my knee, I tried to get up and run again. I physically couldn't do it until the point where I had to have reconstructive knee surgery because they said I couldn't do it no more. Right. Mentally, I was there. Physically broke. Now, I remember that situation, but I also remember making the choice to say, well, I got shit to prove on this one. As soon as I felt this, as soon as I couldn't walk, I'm out. Sorry, guys. See you later. Right. Well, let's finish the game. Fuck that game. I'm good, you know? But as a fighter, it's different. It sounds like it's different. It sounds like you know.
It's not too different. It's not too different, I'll tell you why. In those moments, first of all, you got to remind yourself why you're there. You know, if it's just a casual game and you're just fucking around, then you don't have to risk injuring your knee further for any reason. But if this might be the decisive game for you to go to the NBA and that's your dream, then what are you gonna do? What are you gonna choose? You have to ask yourself in that moment, what's my limit? And that's a question that as a man you have to answer yourself honestly, and deal with that answer, be it good or bad, be it I'm going to move forward and my foot still hurts or my knee still hurts, or I quit and I'll never know what it could have been. It wasn't that big a deal. I'm okay with quitting. It wasn't that big a game, whatever. For me, it's like I have a vision and a goal, you know, and every fight is a step to that goal. So if I decide not to take that step, I'm a step behind, you know? So is the injury going to limit me to make the step? Well, it also depends on the injury. I'm not a fucking idiot. You know, if I can't walk, then I'll sit this one out and wait, obviously. But if it's an injury where I could work around it, then I'm going to work around it, because I asked myself that question, what's my limit? Well, this is not going to be it, you know?
Right. Have you ever quit anything?
I'll tell you what, man. When I started fighting in 2018, my second fight, you know, I was set up to fight this amateur fight still. I was set up to fight this kid, and I remember that day. I don't know what it was. It was the day of, I want to say the day of weigh-ins, or it might have been the day of the actual fight. But early in that day, I don't know if I had a stomach bug or something, but my stomach, it just wasn't agreeing with me that day. You know, I was just in pain. It was like a weird cramp in my stomach, and I didn't show up to that fight. And I always remember that, bro, because it's that thing. It's that thing that I was like, well, what if I would have just showed up and, like, you know, just fucking pulled through it, even if I had that stomach pain or whatever. You know, so I would say that's the only time that I quit something, aside from like maybe a shitty job or something. I've quit shitty jobs.
Right.
But
which is important. It's actually very important to highlight that context, that it's okay to quit some shit that does not serve you.
Yeah, for sure.
I quit drinking a long time ago. Yeah, I wasn't much of a big drinker.
Yeah. But so it's not like you quit drinking like it was a full-time job. Like,
I say, but I guess the context in the word of quitting, right? When people say like, "Oh, you're a quitter."
No, but it's different, bro, because you're not quitting alcohol because it's not something that you do. Like, you drink occasionally, maybe you drink a little too much, but when you're in the context that you're asking me, the way I see it is like, do you quit something of meaning to yourself, like a project or something like that? But if you're quitting something that's not serving you, especially alcohol, like if it's not serving you at all, then, you know, kudos to you. If anything, it's not bad at all. Right. But you're not quitting. You're not a quitter. You're enhancing your life, if anything, you know, because you're putting alcohol, which is not doing you any service, to the side.
It's interesting when I think about that, and I know alcohol is just one substance that we're highlighting, and I'm not much of a drinker, but I know some people who are and who struggle with that and will never quit, and they think it is an enhancer. Yeah. They think it is the balance. I'm not going to compare it to God, but it's something they need in their life. Yeah. They much rather have alcohol than God. Yeah. They much rather have that than exercise. And to me, it's like, you know, mentally, people are fooling themselves. And I think when it comes to being true to yourself and having those honest dialogues vital. It's absolutely vital. Sure. But you got to be honest with yourself.
100%.
And it sounds like you are that. You encapsulate that. It sounds like you're someone who is honest with themselves.
Can't bullshit myself.
And I love that, dude. Yeah. I love that. And I feel that. I feel that, and I feel like you're that kind of person. But I also I have conversations with other people, and I'm like, yo, you're just full of shit. Yeah. You're full of shit, and I can't tell you you're full of shit because you got to tell yourself you're full of shit.
Right.
But what do you? Is it those self talks that help you do that? Is it just in your nature? Well, is it your upbringing? Like what got you to be that?
Well, let me tell you. I'm far from perfect, I would say it.
Me too, bro.
Yeah, for sure. We're all flawed.
Right.
We're flawed as fuck. But no, it's I feel like I'm uncomfortable if I'm not, bro. And let me tell you, I've always been this honest, but and I've told Shiva this. I've had a period of my life, I would say in my early 20s, where I was in a specific relationship, and I feel like I deviated from that brutal self-honesty that I had with myself, but it's also because maybe I was lying in that relationship a lot too. And when you lying is insidious. Lying is almost like an entity of its own. It starts whispering in your inner thoughts and in your confidence, and it just creeps its way into your personality. I started resenting myself because I'm like, no, I've always been, I have to be honest with myself. Otherwise, who am I? Like, you know what I mean? Otherwise, I'm lost in my own body, and I'm not going to have that, bro. I can't. I'd rather be a hermit. If my truth doesn't align with other people and I can't find true harmony with my truth, then I'd rather be a hermit. But you'll find that when you choose that, you do have people like you, and you do have people who value that and notice it and cherish it and respect it. So, yeah, man, to your point about the alcohol, here's how powerful the human mind is. There are people that drink alcohol and smoke cigarettes and stuff like that, and because they truly believe that it does nothing to them, they live long years like this. And you see them good, bro. They're like 70 smoking cigarettes. Dude, Dave Chappelle, he's not super old, but he's getting in his older years, and you see him always in his stand-up smoking cigarettes, and you could see him, he's well in there. But it's his belief about himself, and he doesn't think this is a substance that does anything to him. He's just something that he enjoys, and he knows it's not the best thing, but he also knows it's not the worst thing. He also believes that what he and how he lives his life has more value, and it'll strengthen his immune system far more than a cigarette could damage it. Now, there's that example, and there's the example of the bullshitters, like you were saying, that, no, I'm fine, I'll drink and I'm good, but they're not good. That's just somebody lying to themselves because they're coping. They're using the substance to feel or not feel, specifically not feel. There's a lot of people running away from their real feelings and things that are unresolved, and these are little gateways. You know what I mean? So I feel like you have both, but the human belief is a superpower. What you believe is powerful beyond measure, and if you believe, like me specifically, I always say this joking around, but I truly believe it. I believe I heal really fast, like on some Wolverine shit. Like I've always thought about and admired that power in Wolverine. When you believe something, your body acts in accordance to it. That's how powerful belief is. You know what I mean? So absolutely. Yeah, anything you believe truly and from the heart, it will take life. Yeah,
absolutely. I always share this. It's that at least my personal belief that it's like I could do anything.
Yeah, amen.
Anything.
Amen. Preach.
Yeah, anything. And I truly believe that. And I just haven't put the focus on that thing. Right. Brain surgery.
Why?
Why do I believe that?
Why haven't you put the focus on it if you believe it?
Because I think throughout life, to your point earlier, I align to things that I'm more passionate about, and I have more focus on, and I intrinsically have this understanding and this vision of what I'm supposed to be going towards. I'll give you an example. working out in personal training. I'm a certified personal trainer, and I understand that I can help people training, and I can make money doing that. I understand that.
It doesn't call to you as much.
It doesn't call to me
because you're more of an athlete.
Even being an athlete, it doesn't call to me.
Okay.
I could have been a coach. I had an opportunity to be a coach, and I played football my entire life. It just didn't call to me. But what does call to me is the ability to speak truth.
Okay.
The ability to have conversations like this is what actually has always called to me.
Okay.
What does that mean? It just means I got to figure out where that goes. So my life has always been kind of based around people. I love being around people. I love hearing people's stories, and I love understanding people because it's outside of myself. It's something that it's not. It has nothing to do with me. I'm just genuinely curious. I'm genuinely curious, and I want to see the best for people. And even if that person doesn't see it, or if they see it, I could still pull something.
Right.
And we can still exchange something if it's genuine, because I could also fuck that up too and do it from a toxic standpoint if I'm in a relationship or I'm not. It's not love. It's lust, you know. And it's about that balance and staying true to myself. And for me, it's always been about having conversations like these, because when I grew up, my grandfather, he always used to tell me I could do anything. He's like you got the world.
He's your inner voice.
He is. He started and planted a seed. He's like, you're a kid. You can do anything. He's like, I'm 70. I'm gonna die. He's like, but you got the whole world. You can do anything in this world. In that sparked the imagination, the curiosity. I'm like, but. My parents are, my mom's here, my dad's in jail. I'm like, they're saying I'm going to be failure. They're going to say I'm going to be in jail when I'm 18. He's like, who the fuck do people know? He's like, you got to study how the world actually works.
Right.
And God uses broken people. God is so close to people and fixes people and changes your situation just like that. Yeah. So how dare you even think twice that someone else could even label your life other than you?
Right.
And in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, what do I really know? You know, what do I? So then, when I hear people, when I hear people saying that you should be this and you need to fit in this, and someone else saying you need to do this, it's noise. It's noise. And I realize those people, you know, maybe it's someone that someone told them or whatever have you, but until you start listening to that voice of yourself and understanding going inside, you can really understand how to navigate and be true to yourself. And it took me a long time to realize that for me.
Yeah.
And to understand what am I saying to myself? What gifts do I have?
What are you believing? What
am I believing? What am I being told? What things aren't serving me? You know, and doing that introspection, a lot of that came from thinking that I already knew. Does that make sense? I already knew my ego, and next you know, life just fucked me up.
Yeah.
Shut up, you know, and you got to get up, and you're just like, man, maybe my ego didn't have the best recipe,
or maybe you didn't know everything about it, or maybe there's some details about this particular thing that you thought you knew that life had to like kick you a little bit so that you can understand it better. It's not necessarily that you didn't 100% know. That sometimes is the case, but to think that you know something, it can be good or bad. It depends on, you know, how far you take it. You know, if you think you know something, it gives you a sense of confidence. If you don't know it well enough, life will make sure that you understand that you don't know it well enough. If you can understand that life is telling you that and move forward instead of getting discouraged, then you're on the right track to fully know whatever it is that you want to know.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And you know what? I don't think there's a better piece to end this on, except that one, man. That one's such a good piece, and to leave that with the millions of people, just what would you leave with them if you have one piece of advice to share your light with millions and millions of people? By all means, the floor is yours.
Listen, I would say life can be very complicated, but it's not so complicated. And don't let the years catch up to you for you to notice that. Because, for example, you're talking to me about your grandfather. Your grandfather at some point probably had the same fears you did when he was a young man. Uh-huh. Oh, no, but what about my dad and my mom and the chaos? But then years later, he lived in his life and he's like, no, you can actually do anything you want. don't let the years catch up to you for you to realize that you can do anything you want. You just have to connect to that love within yourself, whatever that may be, you know, and go for whatever it is you want without being discouraged when life tries to teach you how to get there. Because sometimes life tries to teach you in rough ways. You know, sometimes you're humbled. Sometimes you fall, you scrape your knee, you get your heart broken, you lose a job, you know, you're broke, whatever. Don't let that discourage you, because then the game ends there. So you want to keep playing.
Keep playing, show up every day, and continue to fight.
And believe in love.
And believe in love.
That's it.
With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you.